Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon, Chris. Well, it's noon and let's go ahead and get started.
Hi, everybody. I'm not able to start my video.
I'm not planning to start mine either. I mean, I'll show you what I look like.
Well, mine won't even let me. It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it, but I'm fine not using video.
Okay.
Just wanted to let people know.
Same here. Should we go ahead and get started?
Yes.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. The Whatcom PUD's special meeting on Tuesday, September 19th at noon. And we're discussing a single item. And Chris, would you introduce that single item?
I certainly will. I'm going to be talking to you guys about I'm trying to there we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to talk about geothermal, and first 5 minutes or so is just background. So you guys know I've been out searching around, looking for different sources, non-carbon power for our customers and just in general. And it's led me down a lot of paths. And one recently I've been chasing down is potential for geothermal. And the United States government, among others, this is one of the slides on their website. There's this huge untapped potential for geothermal in the West. And when I talk about geothermal, there's really essentially four different kinds, and they're highlighted on this graphic. First kind is what we're all familiar with, which is simply a heat pump type, so ground source heat pump. The second type is called hydrothermal, and that's this type in the middle. That's where there's an existing aquifer that is sitting on top of hot rock, and the water gets hot. And so in a hydrothermal installation, what you do is you pull hot water out of the aquifer, use it to generate power, and then you pump the cold water back in. So there's no degradation to the aquifer, and it's a closed loop. The third type of geothermal that people talk about is called enhanced geothermal. And that's where there is no aquifer. And so what you do is you drill two wells down and you send cold water down one well, and it goes into this new field that doesn't have an aquifer. It creates an aquifer, it heats up, and then you pull it up in the outbound. So this is one where you essentially go down into deep hot rock and create an aquifer and then draw the energy out with the liquid. The fourth kind is really straightforward. It's just where you use hot water coming up out of the ground for direct use in buildings. And that's used extensively in a lot of different places, but especially Iceland and old parts of California and parts of the world where there are natural hot springs. They use this a lot. So what I want to talk about today is really the hydrothermal. And if you look at geothermal here in Whatcom County, you have hydrothermal down here at these blue lease sites, and then you have enhanced geothermal up here in this purple lease site. These two sites were nominated and leased by the Bureau of Land Management in the southern area at least a decade ago. And so down here we have Baker Hot Springs. There were 6 different leases here, and we've been able to contact at least one of the organizations that has the lease. And that is the folks that used to be called Altarock, and now it's CERC, which owns Altarock. And they had leased this geothermal site, this hydrothermal site, I guess about 2011. And by about 2021, CERC had decided that they weren't going to lease it anymore. So they wanted to let the lease go back to BLM, and they've since done that. That happened in January of this year. Now, so how does that affect us? Well, for us to do anything in geothermal, we have to be able to get one of the leases. So the lease that's down here, the hydrothermal lease, is the area where you can do more rapid development. So this is geothermal power the way it's been done for 100 years around the world. Enhanced geothermal is still somewhat experimental. So we wanted to look at what was the possibility of getting one of these leases. Lo and behold, one of them has gone back to the Bureau of Land Management. So the process for getting the lease is 2 different paths. One would be just to let Bureau of Land Management retire the lease and then we nominate the land for release, and it has to be auctioned. And at auction, we may or may not win the auction, may or may not be really expensive, but it's out of our control, and it would take probably 2 years to go through that, if not more. The other alternative is to contact the former lease owner, which is CERC, and see if they would contact BLM and try and get the lease back. Well, we've done that. And CERC said, absolutely. If we thought that we could help in the development of this, they would want it back. And now I'm going on to the reimbursement agreement. Can everybody see the Word document?
No, I
No.
still can see the PowerPoint.
Okay. Well, now I'm locked out of the Zoom. Let's try new share. Reimbursement.
Still no changes. Okay.
There you go.
Looks good.
Okay, I figured it out. I thought I was going to be defeated by technology today. So got a hold of CERC, and they said, sure, we'd be able to pull that back. And they've talked to BLM, and they believe it can be done. CERC said, if you want to do that, you'll have to cure our back lease and our back imputed development costs. Well, how much is that? It turns out it's you think about $85,000, and that's spelled out in here. And then furthermore, there would be an additional payment equivalent to about $48,000 a year to maintain the lease. We would need CERC to get the lease back before anybody could do any additional exploration on site. CERC went ahead and tested this site. They drilled 2 wells, and the wells proved out commercial grade heat gradient. So they found out there was hot enough water down there. The next step is to go and drill larger exploratory wells where you actually pull water out of the ground and then re-inject it to see how much you can get. So it's both the quantity of hot water and the temperature of the water itself. If they go forward and draw a bunch of water out of this and it really depletes the aquifer, runs the temperature down quickly, then it's not a good resource. On the other hand, if you're able to pull up lots of water and re-inject lots of water and it stays hot, then you've got potential for a good resource. Those wells have not been drilled, the bigger wells. And so that would be the next step. But you can't do that unless you've got the lease. So CERC's not interested in proceeding on their own, not because they can't, they don't think this is commercially viable, but because they didn't know how they could get the power off site. And that's where I think we can help. So my recommendation to the commission is that you authorize me to go ahead and sign off on this document and proceed getting the leases transferred from BLM to CERC. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Chris, for the presentation and identifying a potential near-term opportunity, obviously a risky near-term opportunity. So let's open it up for questions. Commissioner Grant, Commissioner Arnett.
Atul, I don't have any questions right now.
Yeah, I don't either. I feel comfortable proceeding with this contract.
I will
Okay,
say that we're going to attempt to get the funds from a variety of different sources. I've already been down the economic development fund route, and there's some language in the EDI which leads me to believe that this would not be an eligible project. But there's still state and federal grants that we're going to be able to go after to cover all of our costs or most of our costs on this.
Have you, Christine, reviewed? Alex sent it to me, but I have to admit I haven't reviewed it. The funding solicitation from the state. Maybe I need to get on that soon. Have you reviewed it yet?
Are you? I'm assuming you're referring to Alex Rammel.
Yeah.
I don't have anything in my inbox from him. So,
Okay, so let me forward that to Chris, and then you can forward it to the commission as well.
Sure.
But let's get on that too to see if that is applicable. There's a new solicitation out from the state under Department of Commerce. on that would, like the energy storage array on the Lummi Peninsula, which is not a PUD project, but that the county's interested in, would be a potential. And I'm wondering, and Alex said that some of the Mount Baker stuff might be applicable. Peter.
Yeah, thank you. I just, and Chris alluded to this, I think, just looking at from a risk perspective, I suppose the one risk is there would be funds expended. I believe, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, that the BLM would have to approve the transfer or the assignment. And I don't know exactly what the criteria for that are right now, but I assume that's part of the deliberation here.
Yeah, so I talked to Nick over at CERC, and a couple of things. One, CERC wasn't the original owner of the lease, so BLM has been fine with this being assigned. And I think Altarock was the original one, but there was somebody else between Altarock and CERC, which is where it ended up. So that's the one thing. And then Nick told me about a couple of other places where they've had different lease assignments going back and forth between people in Idaho. So his feeling was that if we basically tell BLM we're doing this to further the investigation and potentially develop it, that they're all in favor of the transfer.
As far as the something that I want to say that I'm supportive of it. I have two topics that I want to address quickly, and one is what's the worst case scenario on the financial liability to the PUD, and how will we represent and pay off that liability?
So right now, it appears the estimate is about $85,000. And then in the next year, there would be an additional approximately 48,000 is the estimate. That would be the absolute maximum liability if we signed this and then had to get out of it. Saying that, however, there's a clause in here which allows us to review the costs once CERC gets them from BLM before we execute on the agreement. So we still got some off ramp on this, and I don't know how long it would take BLM to get together and say, okay, yeah, we're going to reissue this. Here's what you need to cure it. I'm just not sure if that's something that's relatively quick or if that's months in the making.
All right, well, let me bring up my second item. The second item is there things with the mechanics of this agreement that we can do to increase the likelihood of a reimbursement or coverage from other sources? And why I'm saying bring that up now, I'm sure you've thought of this, Chris, but I'm just bringing it up probably again for you and others. And as the more we can delay our payments in this regards, the more likely it is for us to get reimbursements. Usually, even with reimbursements, you need to have the agreement in place before you start paying out the money, getting the benefit of a reimbursement from another agency. So I assume you've thought that through, but
I have, and of necessity, this agreement is silent on that because it's not CERC's issue where we get the money from. This agreement is between us and CERC, and how they're going to pursue getting the lease back, and if they do, what arrangements are between us. So this agreement is silent on the source of the funding. And yes, I thought long and hard, and there's a lot of options on getting the funding. That fundamentally is our issue, though, not CERC's.
right. So when do you expect will be our? So I asked about what is the quantity of the financial liability? What is your estimate of when we will have to make our first payment?
Well, so what I'm going to do now is speculate, and I can't be more definite than that.
Well, yeah, you don't have to say that because I've already asked for an estimate, which is implying that you're speculating. Yeah, but thanks.
Yeah, it's even more speculative than just an estimate. I don't know how fast BLM will act on this. It could be days to weeks, or it could be months. Once they get the cost to CERC, we have to move quickly. So Circle give us, here's, we estimated it was 85,200, it's 85,300. What do you want to do? And probably within 24, 48 hours, we'll need to make a decision and move.
Okay. And we're authorizing that with this vote that we're going to have today.
Yes. And that is my recommendation. I will note that John's organization has reviewed this agreement. And
if we have a financial liability, how will we assign that financial liability? Will it go into the general category of overhead? Will it go into new energy type thing that kind of line items we've had under the strategic plan? We've got budget allocation for this kind of an item too.
well, we've pretty much exhausted the Alcoa fund, which is what I think you're referring to. I don't think that would cover this, what's left in there. Logically, this would be part of the electric line of business. So we'd want to book the liability there.
Okay. Yeah, and obviously that is something that we could get feedback from P66 on. But it's not necessarily going to be that way. I'm just raising the issue. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm comfortable moving forward, and we'll put a motion out onto the table I'll make a motion to approve the reimbursement agreement and option with Alta Rock Geothermal Holdings LLC.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussions? Okay, then, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Is there any other business for the good of the order before we conclude this meeting?
No, Commissioner, I have no further business to bring.
Great, then we'll see all of each other next Tuesday in the morning at 8 a.m.
Excellent.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And for those of you who are attending from public, if you would like to make comments, you can make so on Tuesday at the beginning of our meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.